I don't know why he thinks he's charismatic enough to be able to play this song and dance to make it seem as though he did the right thing, by the way. I don't know who the he's convincing here. Democrats' approval rating is in the dumpster. They have a net negative 38% disapproval right now. 38 points in the dumps.
Spike in anti-Semitism we're experiencing right now in America began after the worst instance of violence committed against Jewish people since the Holocaust.
Back in 2023, New York Senator Chuck Schumer made a passionate and personal speech from the Senate floor condemning anti-Semitism, and that is the topic of his new book called Anti-Semitism in America, A Warning. In it, he writes, the rise of anti-Semitism is a, quote, five-alarm fire that threatens American democracy. And Senator Schumer joins us now. Senator, thank you very much for being here.
Great to be with you all.
Wouldn't want to be looking out your window when I woke up this morning, right? You've got protesters out there.
I'm not looking forward to these clips being posted a year from now when everything is worse, exactly as you've said, in an effort to vindicate you. I know. It's just, there's nothing we can stop. I mean, there's nothing we can do to stop it, though, unfortunately, it seems. All we can do is keep resisting with the hopes that, like, you know, inevitably the government will back down from it. Interesting. Double Cirque Tony having a very different tone with Chuck Schumer as he did with Ta-Nehisi Coates. If you recall, you know, he's not saying that this book has writings that could be seen in the backpack of a terrorist.
It's been a difficult few days. We're going to get to that. We're also going to get to the book. But I want to talk about what's going on in the Middle East, because overnight, the ceasefire that had held and that you had celebrated between Israel and Hamas has been broken.
Right.
Your reaction to that, and do you think a ceasefire could get back on the table?
Yes.
Could it be reestablished?
They were really close. And this ceasefire, the second round of the ceasefire is important because first it says Hamas, which I believe has been a large cause of the trouble, would disarm and Israel would remove its soldiers from Gaza. So they were close. It fell apart. I don't know the exact details. It happened overnight. But I think our government has to work really hard to bring them back to the table and get those hostages home. And I think it's possible because they were close at one point.
Now, last week, you and 9 other Democrats helped avert a government shutdown by voting for a Republican-written bill, which many Democrats have been angered by.
Yeah. By the way, the government is considering keying Teslas an act of terror, and dumb fucks in the chat are like, I don't understand. It's just like you went to a funeral proceeding. It's perfectly valid for the government to just like deny you your visa. I have no thoughts in my mind. Certainly, the fascist administrative state will not expand on the definition of terrorism away from people that you agree to people that you like. Certainly, that's never happened historically. This is the problem. This is the issue with violating certain pre-existing protections.
And we've seen it described as a civil war, as a train wreck. Many Democrats believe, you know, if you have a government shutdown, that will force President Trump and Republicans to the negotiating table. Why not use your vote to push back and fight?
Because the idea that they would go to the negotiating table is they don't do it. This is a new group. This is not the old group. Let me explain. I knew when I took this vote there'd be a lot of protests, but I felt I had to do it for the future, not only of the Democratic Party, but the country. Because here's as bad as that CR bill was, and it was bad, a shutdown is 10 times worse. Let me give you what happens.
And blamed on the Democrats.
And you're right, Gail. But can I just explain what?
But you had been saying you were not going to vote. I think people were upset with you, and people were very upset with you because you had led people to believe that, no, I'm going to vote against
Okay, well, let me explain why first a shutdown is terrible. People ought to know that. The executive branch, in this case, Musk, Doge, and this horrible guy Vogt, who have no concern for working people, would have had sole power to determine what opens and what closes. They determine what is essential. You can't go to court. So on day 2, get rid of SNAP and food for hungry kids. It's not essential. Day 4, get rid of mass transit aid. Let New York City do it. Not essential. Cut back on Medicaid and health care. Within 2 weeks, everyone would have been howling. Furthermore, it's even worse.
Oh my God, bro, you are. Oh God, please step aside, dude. Please, just step down. Yeah, people would be howling. You know at who? The Trump admin for refusing to concede. It's crazy because like his own audience, his own base of support don't want this. His own base of support is saying like fight back as the Trump administration. Meanwhile, you just gave them the legal jurisdiction to be able to do all of those things down the line, and they immediately cut key expenditures from like mental health treatment and shit. What are you talking about? That was in the bill that you allowed to pass through. Pelosi in San Francisco says she has confidence in Schumer as Senate Dem leader, but offers this reflection on the shutdown fight. I myself don't give away anything for nothing. I think that's what happened the other day. Trump said he was ready to negotiate with the Democrats. Understand me? Trump said he was ready to negotiate with the Democrats. One day later, Chuck Schumer conceded. A day after Trump said he would negotiate and talk to the Democrats about this deal, Chuck Schumer conceded without any assurances. It's so crazy that he's still actively trying to make it seem like this was the right decision. This was a smart decision. This was the best decision possible. I know better. They have some dirt on Schumer then? No, they don't. They don't have dirt on Schumer. The only reason why Schumer did this and Kirsten Gillibrand did this is because they're close to Wall Street. It's that simple. They're close to Wall Street, and Wall Street was like, don't fuck up the bag. The market is already incredibly volatile with the tariffs. If you actually put up a fight against the shutdown, then the market is going to dive. It's going to nosedive even further. You have to protect it. That's it. And he did it against the wishes of his constituents. He did it against the preservation of future expenditures for incredibly important programs that people rely on. That's it. That is the only reason why he did this. The reason why he did this is because bosses made a boss call and said, if you actually put up a fight, a strong fight that leads to a government shutdown, then people are going to, if you put up a strong fight that leads to a government shutdown, then market volatility is going to cause a major crash. So he said, yes, sir, I'll play ball.
It has no off-ramp. Guess who determines when we leave the shutdown? The Republicans. And let's not forget how bad they are. This guy, Vogt, probably the most evil man. He's the guy who came up with that Project 2025.
Yes.
Yeah. He has a whole playbook of what to shut down. So they had said, one of the Republican senators who knows said to us, you'll be in the shutdown for 6 to 9 months till we totally destroy the federal government. So the shutdown was a much worse alternative. I knew I'd get a lot of flack.
But Senator,
I took some bullets from other people.
And you're still taking bullets, but should you have let people know you're thinking ahead of time? Because really, people thought...
The problem was it came so fast. Hakeem and I had a strategy, which was to try and get a bipartisan bill, which meant in the House, the Republicans would have not been able to pass it. Only at the last minute did it happen that they all voted for it. And so Patty Murray tried to get that bipartisan bill on Wednesday. That's why I said we didn't have the votes yet. Mm-hmm. They pulled out Wednesday night, and Thursday we had 2 bad choices. But I assure the public, a shutdown would have been the greatest disaster we have to put the government in the sole hands of the evil, nasty, nihilistic people like Musk and Vogt and Trump. Would have been the greatest. We would have had half the federal government we have now. So I thought I did the thing a leader should do. Even when people don't see the danger around the curve, my job was to alert people to it, and I knew I'd get some bullets.
Senator, the leader in question, that is...
He's like, yeah, I fell on my sword bravely. It's not. You flopped. You showed your belly like a coward. There is no honorable way out of this. I don't know why he thinks he's charismatic enough to be able to play this song and dance to make it seem as though he did the right thing, by the way. I don't know who the he's convincing here. Democrats' approval rating is in the dumpster. 29%, dude. 29% approval is crazy. They have a net negative 38% disapproval right now. 38 points in the dumps. I already finished the thread. There's a Harry Enton on the CNN poll. There's a Harry Enton CNN poll as well on how unpopular the Democrats are.
Say, Democrats, call your office. You know, we're in March Madness times. Terrible, 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 to quote the great Charles Barkley. View Democratic Party favorably. CNN SRS, look at this, 29%. NBC News, you want to go lower than that? How about 27%? Both are record lows. The lowest going back to 1992 in CNN polling, the lowest going back on record to 1990 in NBC News polling. The majority of Americans hold an unfavorable or negative view of the Democratic Party at this point. All I can say is I'm a big fan of the oldies, so I'm going to quote Chubby Checker. How low can you go?
Nice. Well done. With that, what about congressional Democrats specifically?
Yeah, what about congressional Democrats specifically? You think these numbers are low. How about this one? Holy Toledo. Voters' views of the Democrats in Congress among all voters disapprove, 68%. And look at the approved number, just 21%, even lower than the Democratic Party at large. This is the lowest on record for Democrats, according to Quinnipiac University polling. You think these numbers are bad? Let's go to this side of the screen. We'll look how...
I hate to say I told you so. First of all, Mike, you don't hate to say I told you so. You love saying it. But also, I didn't predict anything opposite of this. Like, yes, I'm familiar with the lack of interest from the Democratic Party. I said that it wasn't going to turn into hashtag resistance liberalism like it did last time. And that, yes, people would honestly be even more frustrated as a consequence of this. The difference that you and I have, the difference in opinion that you and I have on this matter is that I'm not so confident that the Democratic Party is going to give way to a third party at all, and they're going to use whatever like remainder of the infrastructure they have to actively destroy third party initiatives, third party moments. So I don't think that we're out of this yet. You know, I don't think that we're out of this at all. I don't know how we get out of this to begin with, but like, yes, I am also aware and said that this was most likely going to happen, and it is happening. The problem is, I don't even know how to get out of this. Like, I don't know how to get out of this situation with or without the Democratic Party. We're cooked. Like, decentralized movements are not always they're not going to be successful. That's one aspect of this conversation. We have, this is like the Democratic Party is weaker than it's ever been. I don't know. I don't know where we go from here. I don't think Bernie Sanders is going to launch a third-party initiative, and without any sort of popular momentum from a well-established figure outside of the confines of the existing duopoly, that still gets like a warm reception from the pre-existing duopoly, like a Bernie Sanders figure who is entirely too old at this point. The Democrats are. Third-party initiatives will be foolhardy and will go the way of the Green Party. In any case, I've been saying this over and over again. Like, the Democrats are slowly but surely refusing to listen to the wishes of the largest subgroup of voters at this point. Like, they're basically treating everyone now like they did during the campaign if you were like in any way, shape, or form anti-genocide, where they were like, la, 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 I don't want to hear you, you're woke, shut the fuck up, right? That's how they campaigned during the campaign, and that's part of the reason why they lost. Now, they make it seem like these groups that are firmly within the Democratic Party's ecosystem, like these groups that the Democratic Party relies on and their own base of support, like, 65-year-old Deborahs and Barbaras who are actively saying, please fight back against the Trump administration. We're scared. What the f-? They're calling them, pro-Palestinian advocates at this point. They're treating them in the same way that they did people who were like understandably angry that the Democrats wouldn't do anything. Like, they are actively shitting on their own base at this point, like the entirety of their base, not even the activist part of their base, not even like the progressive part of their base, not even the young part of their base, the entirety of it. Once you're yelling at like 55-year-old moms and 65-year-old grandmas for telling you like do something, anything against the Trump administration, you're done. You have no support. You have no base of support whatsoever. You can't treat every single person like they are, climate justice sunrise movement protesters. You shouldn't treat them that way either. But the Democrats have gone far too long mistreating its own base of support, the most active part of their base, and all of these grassroots movements with so much ire, with so much disdain. And now they're doing that to, like, liberal ass grandma, MSNBC voters, MSNBC watchers. It's crazy. They are disgusting.
Democratic voters feel, get this, the plurality of Democratic voters disapprove of Democrats in Congress at 49% and just 40.
Yeah, they want a fighter. Democrats want a fighter. They've always wanted a fighter. Anyone that has told you on television they do not want a fighter, that the Dems actually don't want to fight. They want someone who will capitulate and find the reasonable middle ground, is a moron. Democratic voters have always wanted a fighter. There's no better living, breathing, microcosmic example of this than me going on the Pod Johns and basically saying the exact same things that I always say, but in front of an audience that seemingly had never heard this perspective before, where they were like, oh my God, I didn't realize that there was like a different way possible. Like there was some different serious commentary, serious criticisms launched against Democrats that I agree with. They were shocked because they've been kept captive almost by MSNBC. It's truly alarming.
Percent approve. Horrible. Oh my goodness gracious, you just can't get worse than these numbers.
And this is the number right here really driving all of this. If Democratic voters have turned on Democrats in Congress and the Democratic Party, that's what puts the numbers at historic lows.
I was one of those people who didn't know what was possible or what I was missing because no one on the liberal side ever talked about it. Well, I'm glad you're here now. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you're seeing that we're not like scary monsters in the way that like liberals actively present us. That's the other side of this. Not the Pod Johns. They're fine. But there are a lot of like liberal content creators out there, even in independent media on YouTube and whatnot, who basically spend all of their time shitting on people like myself, shitting on people to the left of them. And the reason why they do that is because they want to do poison welling. Okay? I mean, they want to well poison. They want to poison the well. They want to poison the well before you actually ever, on accident, reach my commentary, so that whenever you come in here, you don't have any sort of like charitability. You don't have any sort of charitability to the positions that I'm advocating for, and you immediately see me as like a hostile figure. Yeah, poison the well. Yeah, I f***ed it up. I really appreciate your viewpoint. I always thought some of their takes were weird and weren't as angry as I was at things, and I thought I was just wrong. Poison Wellington.
Lows. What is it they want to be seeing, these voters?
What is going on? I'll tell you what's going on. They don't like what's coming out of some of those Senate Democrats like Chuck Schumer, because take a look at the direction of the party. Democratic voters on Democrats in Congress doing too little to oppose Donald Trump. Look at this, 77% should stay principled, even if it means nothing gets done in Washington, D.C. 60.
Like, this is virtually the entirety of the Democratic base of support, like the overwhelming majority, the super majority of the Democratic base of support, actively advocating for things that I've been saying and yelling about for years. Get to work, Democrats, right? And the Dems are just going, la, 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 I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Shut the f*** up. The level of disdain and the level of disgust that they have for their entire base, not just like select few parts of their base, but the entirety of their base, is alarming. You work for us, you animals. You work for us. We don't work for you. You work for us. That's why I get so angry at liberals who even come in here now and say, oh, aren't you worried about your decisions now? Kamala would never do this. It's like, dude, you are such a moron. Democracy is not about team sports. You got to vote for one team over the other because the one team is going to be marginally better than the other. That's not how democracy is supposed to work. Democracy is about extracting concessions from your elected representatives. Okay? It's not team sports. What the f is wrong with you? The notion that like it's not, they didn't lose on their own merits or lack thereof, and it was actually because the voters failed the party, not the party failed the voters, is so insanely backwards. It's so twisted. It's so f***ed up. And these are supposed to be the educated voters who are, who at least statistically have like a college education. They read the newspaper, right? They don't believe in fake news. Like, these are the liberals. And they have, they've destroyed their brain over and over. They're smoothing out their brain by watching too much MSNBC. Holy
65%. And this 65% is such a difference from where we were in 2017 at this point, when just 33% of Democrats say this should stay principled, compared to 59% who said they want to compromise. Democrats do not want compromise at this point. They want a fighter. They want to go into the ring like Muhammad Ali did against Sonny Liston. They want to take down the Republicans. They do not want this compromise anymore. They want to be more like Republicans, get up to that stage and fight. And right now they feel like their leaders in Congress are simply put not doing so. And that is why their approval rating for congressional Democrats is at an all-time low, even among Democrats with more disapproving than approving.
Yeah, it seems that the Senate Democrats, some of them are banking on the idea that there is still a political middle, as it were. We will see. We will see.
We will see if there's a political middle, but at this point, count me skeptical that that is at least what the Democratic base wants at this point. It's going to be very interesting, John, to see moving forward whether or not there are any repercussions come 2026, because I bet there may be some coming.
Harry M., thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Sarah?
I feel like the most shocking part of that was how you dipped down and you were able to get back up without hearing any creaking or cracking. Nice to.
Yeah, here. Also, this is the other side of the story. Here, I'm going to give you that too. This is a another example of this, hugging the middle, moderation, and hugging and kissing right-wing fascists. It doesn't work. Gavin Newsom wants to be president, okay? So what did he do? He set up a podcast. He heard that, like, you know, podcasts are so important for winning elections. Guess what, dude? Here's new data on the reaction to Gavin Newsom's new podcast. Favorability amongst liberals has declined from 40% to 30%. While some Republicans agree with the stances, they overwhelmingly viewed him as insincere, calling him fake and pandering. His net favorability went from +4 to a -6 to a 10-point swing in the wrong direction. Only 13% of voters had an improved perception of him, and only 1 in 5 said the podcast made them want to tune in for more. It doesn't even work in the sphere of podcasting. And Democrats are so one note on this, like, let's hug and kiss the middle. Let's find this, like, reasonable moderate between Steve Bannon and Gavin Newsom that they even fail at podcasting. I don't understand what these guys are doing. It feels like they just look to some of the most historically unpopular figures like Kyrsten Sinema or Joe Manchin within the Democratic Party, and they're like, we need to be more like that. Why? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like, you're at this point, it's just a podcast, right? It's just a podcast. You want to win an election, don't you? You want to win elections. You want to have a successful podcast. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever to behave like this, to operate like this. It doesn't make sense at all. Jesus Christ. They're eroding. Looks like Democrats are saying we don't want to hug the middle. New NPC poll shows 2-1 Democratic leaders to fight back, even if it means partisan gridlock. It is funny to me, though. Like, they are at the very least honest, it seems. They are at the very least honest. Like, the Democrats seemingly are intellectually and morally consistent on this, where they're like, yeah, even if my podcast fails, I still don't care. I'm still going to abide by this, like, weird.
These images.
I'm still going to abide by this weird ass, this weird ass attitude that there is some semblance of like if I were to advocate for the moderate middle, like, then magically someday people will come to terms with what I'm doing. They are unimaginably unpopular, lowest ever, and this dipshit thinks like, nah, this is, you don't understand. I actually did something. I actually did something good. You guys are just too stupid to understand it. And it's funny because that lack of interest in trying to understand where the public is coming from is precisely why the Democrats keep losing. Breaking: Trump has just fired both the Democratic commissioners at the Federal Trade Commission in a potentially illegal move. Nice. Good stuff. Yeah. Well, let's get back to Chuck Schumer. I'm sure he'll have some great takes on this too.
is actually what people are debating right now. There are people in your party who don't want you to be a leader in the party anymore. And it's a question of what is this moment and what does it require? I want to ask a question about that moment involving the Venezuelan deportations and the court hearings around it. Put the charges or lack of evidence or whatever against these men aside for now. And let's just talk about the interaction of the Trump administration.
Can you counter his argument as that the government shutdown would accelerate towards more federal cuts? Yes, because government shutdowns are unpopular. When you furlough employees, you immediately accelerate the process. And when you accelerate that process, there is a messaging battle that the Democrats can engage in where they can actively communicate to the population, this is what the Trump administration is doing. That means all of the harm and all the responsibility will be attributed to the Trump administration. Okay? And they can't attain that level of unpopularity for too long. People are going to start freaking the fuck out. People are going to start panicking. The market is going to start collapsing. In that process, it is infinitely better for the Democrats to have put up a fight and communicated the real villains here, especially because if you pass this continued resolution, you already give them the legal power to start closing the money faucet on certain expenditures that the government has power over that Congress is giving to the presidency, and the president has already done that. They're doing it with Doge in a slower process, and they're now doing it with the additional authorization that Congress approved. You've basically said, oh, I'm scared that people might yell at me for forcing a government shutdown, which, you know, if done correctly, would obviously, understandably put the blame on Trump. So instead, I'm giving Trump an opportunity to legally do the exact same thing that a shutdown would do in a way that also offers him cover, in a way that offers him shelter and legal protection.
And the court.
Yes.
They seem to take the position that this court doesn't have jurisdiction over them, and you have Tom Homan saying he doesn't care what the judge thinks. What did Democrats do if and when the Trump administration defies a federal judge?
First of all,
yeah, those cuts he's talking about would not be permanent. It forces the party in power to come to the bargaining table and reinstate things that their base would righteously be angry about. Meanwhile, when you go without a fight and offer Trump the opportunity to cut down federal programs, you basically gave him the legal authorization to do so in a longer timeline. And although you gave him shelter from scrutiny. It's up.
We have to have rule of law. People say, well, that's not me. If we get rid of rule of law, the 248-year tradition in America, this democracy is over, okay? So it's vital to stop it. There are two courts.
How do the Democrats do that?
There are two courts. One is the court of public opinion. And the public has to make, if this happens, they have to make their voices known, Democrats, Republicans, everyone, in the strongest terms, because it's ending our democracy. Now, but we also have the courts. And so far, the lower courts have done a good job. We hope the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court will do the same job. When the lower courts, and I'm very proud that we put in all those judges last year, many of whom are making these decisions, when the lower courts thus far have said to the Trump administration, you must stop, in most cases they have.
But you hear the Trump
don't, that's not my
administration saying
question.
we're not going to pay attention to the court.
If they don't, and we go to the Supreme Court and it is defied, democracy is at real risk, and there will have to be extraordinary action taken.
Tony touched on it, Senator.
And that is by the people, by everybody.
But there are people in your own party that are saying, look, it's time for you to go. They no longer trust your leadership. They want somebody else in there. What do you say about that?
Here's what I say.
In your own party saying you've got to go.
Here's what I'm saying. I'm the best leader for the Senate. We have a lot of leaders. You know, when you don't have a president, there's not one leader of the party. There are lots of them. We have a lot of good people. But I am the best at keep winning Senate seats. I've done it in 2005. Just in 2020, no one thought we'd take back the Senate. Under my leadership, we took it. So we now are executing.
You're not going anywhere.
We have a.
You lost seats. What are you talking about? I'm the best. Why are you the minority leader right now? What does that mean? You were the majority leader. Now you're the minority leader.
Great. We're moving forward. Hakeem and I have a plan. Let me just say this. There's a real contrast between the parties. The Republican Party now, particularly in office, is the party of rich oligarchs who want to really...
Yeah. Democrats learned from the Republicans and they're now lying too. Yeah, but they're lying in the wrong direction. I don't want the Democrats to lie. I want them to earnestly push for genuine changes. Okay? But even if they're going to lie, I want them to lie in the direction of seizing more power. Basically, his argument is that if they shut the government down, then Trump would violate the law. So they decided to change the law to make what Trump is doing legal. That means rule of law is still working. Exactly. This way, they preserve the integrity of the institutions as Donald Trump keeps violating them. It's best to play dead, because if we put up a fight, God forbid, then Trump is going to hurt our feelings. Trump is going to violate the norms. We can't have that. Christ, dude. Coward.
Screw every average American so they can get tax cuts for the rich. And we are fighting that every day. So today, we just issued a statement at 8 o'clock that describes it. Hakeem and I, we have a day of action on Medicaid. In every state, in every corner of the country, Democrats are talking about they're going to Medicaid centers. They're going to people who would be deprived and
Senator, people don't have faith in the Democrats.
Well, let me say this.
And those average Americans.
And we're going to do this day in, day out on issues. Why are they doing tariffs and raising your cost $2,000? It's beginning to work. Why are they taking away Fannie and Freddie and raising your housing costs dramatically? It's beginning to work. His numbers have come down. If we keep at it every day, relentless fighting and showing how they're hurting people so badly, Trump's numbers will get much lower, and his both popularity but also his effectiveness will decline. I believe that strategy will work.
May I hold up the book?
Yes.
Yeah, let's get to the book.
This is why you were here.
Yes.
Because
news that stays news, anti-Semitism.
Yes. Yeah, it's coming out at a time where you said you never thought you'd have to write this book, but you never thought anti-Semitism would be as bad as it is.
Yes.
You said for many non-Jewish people, it's alarming, but it's not a real problem and not a priority. And to that you say...
Yeah, Jewish people, we carry 5,000 years of history on our back. Conor Cruz O'Brien, the great Irish poet, said anti-Semitism is a light sleeper. When things get bad, often, almost in too many societies, it turns on the Jews. You know, I was brought up between 1950, I was born in 1950. For the first 50 years, the Jewish people, we call it the Golden Medina. Jews did great in America, like everybody else. We were advancing up the ladder. There was very little anti-Semitism because the pall of the Holocaust hung over America, and people realized what could happen. But starting in 2000 with 9/11, a little worse in the financial crisis, where a lot of them accused.
Yeah. When I think of bigotry that was supercharged after 9/11, I think of the Jews did 9/11 conspiracies. Okay? And not Islamophobia that became government mandated so that we could justify the atrocities that we committed over there. That's crazy, dude. I don't know. God damn, dude. That is insane. Progressive, by the way. Progressive Party, by the way. You should be embarrassed. It's crazy. You should be embarrassed to say this.
Jewish financiers. But it got much worse in 2017. So that for the first time, Jewish Americans say, maybe it could happen here. Like it happened.
Yeah, who could forget the first hate crime post 9/11, which was, of course, a Jewish man. Oh, wait, it wasn't. It wasn't even a Muslim man, actually. It was a Sikh person that the psychopath thought was Muslim.
Happened everywhere else. So I wrote this book.
Yeah,
I wrote this book aimed at 5 audiences, and then I'll add a 6th. First, my generation. So they see we're not alone. My experience is often their experience. Second, to my generation's children. They know what's going on, but they didn't know the struggles of Israel, the history of anti-Semitism. You know, they know
the struggles of Israel.
Our holidays. There's a joke about the...
Yeah. No, there was post World War II in the United States of America. It was a historic period, according to Chucky here, where there was no anti-Semitism famously. Why? Because we deported Jews as the American government in the same exact way that the Nazis wanted to deport or put Jews into concentration camps for being suspected communists, of course. That's right. But that period was perfect for Jews, according to Chuck Schumer. Now, don't make any inferences on what the American government might do later down the line.
3 words that describe every Jewish holiday. They tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat.
Yes.
So they know about it. But third, it's aimed at non-Jewish people who say, you know, it's bad, but why are they so sensitive? You read this book, you'll see it.
Right.
Finally, I'm aiming it at my left, my people on the left, my friends on the left. I've always been a progressive, but we've always seen anti-Semitism on the right. You saw those people at 9/11, at January 6th wearing shirts that more than 6 million. But now a lot of it's trickled over to the left, and that's bad too.
Yeah, the real fear is the leftist anti-Semitism. Oh my God. Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you for tackling the real issues right now in this day and age. Anti-Semitism coming from the left, which is, of course, having thoughts about Israel, saying Israel is an apartheid state. Because remember, this dipshit told the New York Times, yeah, he thought January 6th is 9/11, by the way, which is a fantastic Freudian slip from Chuck. But this dipshit told the New York Times that the UN anti-Semitically says Israel is doing a genocide. He said the United Nations is anti-Semitic. You're out of your mind, dude. I'm not entertaining this conversation. I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate it so goddamn much. There are varying degrees of fear, some of which comes from an understandable perspective, given Jewish history around the planet, okay? Given the history of the Holocaust. And then there is the other side of saying that my own personal feelings as someone who is in support of Israel are being hurt, and therefore the genocide should continue and you shouldn't say anything about it. The moment that you move into that territory, the moment that you start chirping about that, you've lost me, okay? Fuck you and fuck your feelings. Suck my dick.
I hope every student and every school makes this advisory or required reading. And you know who else should read it? Donald Trump.
I'm sure you're
He
public.
has shown, let me just say this.
Yeah, Donald Trump.
Welcome to the show!
Hold on. Let's finish the Chucky boy media, the stupid ass takes that he had, because I'm going to show you one more thing from. I'm going to show you a thing that he said on The View too.
He'd do a lot to read it because Donald Trump. Let me just finish this quick point.
How is that different from what Kanye West is saying? Wait, what? Your feelings in defense of Israel being called out is not more important than, 1, free speech protections, and 2, being able to actively criticize the Israeli government for doing a genocide with our tax dollars is the same as what Kanye West is saying? Are you stupid? Or you dropped on your head as a baby? You think that's the same? You think falsely conflating Israel's actions with Judaism and then assuming a defensive posture that centers your own personal feelings about Israel's continued genocide is the same as saying that, Kanye West loves Adolf Hitler, just over and over again, repeating that and making swastika merchandise. If my grandmother had wheels, she would be a bicycle. All the years of the left standing against modern neo-Nazis who spewed anti-Semitism throughout the rise of the alt-right, as shit-libs scolded the left for antagonizing the right, now the shit-libs are accusing the left of being anti-Semitic. Yeah.
Point. Donald Trump has shown that he regards Jews as transactional. Oh, they're good for votes, they're good for money. He has no understanding of the Jewish people, and it leads him to do bad things, sitting down with that anti-Semite fool when Charlottesville occurred, saying both.
They made it back. Dude, I came right at the... Look at that.
And SpaceX Freedom, splashdown. Good main release.
You guys got to see it.
Copy splashdown. We see main shoots cut. Nick, Alex, Butch, Sunny.
Look at the timing.
On behalf of SpaceX.
Hasan Reactions is one of the best ones in the React channel.